Joining us now is the Democratic Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, a lot of politics and Congress stuff to talk to you about, but let's start with Jimmy Carter. His funeral procession moving through your shared home state of Georgia as we speak. Let's talk about Jimmy Carter. We've talked a lot about some specific slices, both of his presidency and his post-presidency. But one we haven't talked a lot about is his record of diversifying the federal judiciary, the federal bench. It's a largely underrated part of his legacy.
Yeah, it is. You know, when President Carter came into office in 1976, across the nation's history up to that time, only 8 women and 31 people of color had been appointed to serve in the federal courts of this country. And in 4 short years, with 262 overall appointments to the federal bench, President Carter diversified the bench by appointing 40 women and 57 people of color to the bench, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who ascended to the Supreme Court, and also, another justice, Stephen Breyer, was one of President Carter's appointments. He made it to the United States Supreme Court. President Carter was one of the only presidents who did not get an opportunity to make a appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court, but he certainly made his mark in terms of diversifying the federal bench, and that trend continues to this day. But you can chalk it up to him being the first one to do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because his heritage and his upbringing didn't always suggest that would be the case. It's almost like Jonathan Alter was saying, it's almost like he made up for it later in life. He doesn't think he was on the right side of history when he started, and he decided that he was actually going to live out civil rights and equality when he got into positions of power, starting as governor of Georgia and ultimately in the presidency.
Well, you know, he was raised in a poor family, a farmer, a family of farmers. His daddy was an avowed segregationist, but his mother, Ms. Lillian, was a progressive, caring woman, and she taught Jimmy to not look at Black people as being subhuman. He was not a racist, and neither was she. And so, you know, I think he made clear choices as a young person, you know, which side of the fence he was going to be on. And he chose his mother's side of the fence to be on, to his credit. And his life, I mean, he made such an impact on the continent of Africa when most presidents would not be concerned about anything going on in Africa, but President Carter visited Africa as president, and he continued his care and concern about the people of Africa and human rights throughout Africa, throughout the remainder of his life, even to the point of eradicating the guinea worm, which I mean, it's pretty much eradicated just based on Jimmy Carter's effort to eradicate that disease, which afflicted so many people throughout Africa.
Yeah, there were I don't know how many millions of cases there were in 1986, and last year there were 14 cases of guinea worm in the world. In fact, I met Jimmy Carter on a flight to Nelson Mandela's funeral in 2013. He took a very strong position in favor of the ANC and Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was subsequently named a terrorist and was not allowed to come to the United States without getting a special visa, even after he was elected president of South Africa.
Well, you know, that was one of the things that President Carter should be known for. He was a visionary, and he actually was way before his time on certain things like apartheid in South Africa, like climate change, like the need to diversify the federal bench, like peace in the Middle East. So many things that he acted on out of a visionary state of mind, may not have been popular at the time, but yet over the course of time, we now see that President Carter was so on top of things and such a great leader, even though his reputation at the time and even all the way up to this time has been that his presidency was a failed presidency. Right. But actually, the man was a visionary before his time. And if we had continued with rolling out solar panels, not just on the White House, right, but on everybody's house, can you imagine how far we would have advanced? Yeah, that's exactly right. Economically and environmentally.
Yeah. Congressman, we got to talk about Congress, but we're going to have to leave that for another time. But that's okay, because you and I will have lots of opportunities, and there'll be a lot of stuff going on in Congress for us to talk about. I appreciate you joining us today to remember Jimmy Carter, Democratic Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia. All right, still ahead, we got a huge meeting in the Velshi Band Book Club coming.